Good evening. This is a continuation of the Stratford Town Council meeting, and we have left off at the 2018 fiscal year budget.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion first to adopt the mayor's budget as proposed.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to make an amendment to that budget.
Yes?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I have an amendment to the mayor's proposed budget. It's an ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for the town of Stratford, Connecticut for fiscal year July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 to decrease the appropriation by $898,935 and to increase revenues by $240,000. This amendment is sponsored by Council Members Chase, DePonte, Hardin, and Llewellyn. The resulting passage of this amendment will result in a decrease in the mayor's proposed mill increase of 0.25. Specifically, expenditures, line 01101, object 6004, town council clerk, part-time payroll, a reduction of $40,000. Expenditure 01104, object 06003, town attorney, payroll regular, a decrease of $72,936. Expenditure 01105, object 6061, chief administrative officers, education, decrease $2,000. 01111, object 6081, planning and zoning, education, a decrease of $31,500. Expenditure 01111, object 6399, planning and zoning, outside services, a reduction of $44,000. Expenditure 01251, 6053, employee benefits, self-health, reduction of $136,000. 01151, 6602, contingency anticipated expense, increase $25,000. 01305, 6003, tax collector, payroll regular, a decrease of $33,000. 01353, object 6019, recreation, payroll other, a deduction of $20,000. 01360, 6422, excuse me, Visiting Nurse Association community grant, $53,500. 01406, 6363, town garage, heating oil, a decrease of $7,000. 01461, object 6523, fire administration, emergency management, decrease of $9,000. 01551, 6802, Board of Education, teachers retirement, decrease of $9,002 and $902,181. 01551, 6801, Board of Education, budget.
6802.
I'm sorry, 6802, Board of Education, BOE budget increase 2.75%, increase $427,182.
I'm sorry. I need to call order, please. Mr. Chase, if you can finish with the revenues, not finish with, but continue with the revenues.
Total expenditure decrease $898,935. Revenues, 011004642, General Fund, Cell Tower Rental, $40,000. 011005029, General Fund, Railroad Fund, $130,000. 4644, General Fund, Building Lease, $25,000. 01107, Object 4306, General Fund, Conveyance Tax, $20,000. 014614349, General Fund, Fire Department, increase $25,000, for a total of $240,000. In addition, Council Members Chase, Dopandi, Hardin, and Lewin would like to amend the budgets of the EMS and Short Beach Golf Course funds with the following changes, which will have no impact on the mill rate. Enterprise Fund expenditures, 4393, Object 6641, EMS Capital Outlay Contingency, decrease $98,642. 43943, Object 7001, EMS Transferred Applied Overhead, $77,243. 4094, 6063, Short Beach Golf Pension Deposit, $109,259. Decrease, for a total of decrease $285,144. Madam Chairman, I move adoption.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a second for that?
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay, the first was made by Mr. Chase, seconded by Mr. Hardin. Discussion? Mr. Llewellyn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I get started, I want to just let everybody know that I'm going to be kind of reading a prepared statement. Me and my family moved here to Stratford in 2005.
Mr. Llewellyn, I'm going to interrupt you a second. I see that there are a number of people way out into the halls. I don't know if the fire marshal would allow for them to come in or whether we need to go.
If you want to make an announcement that they're going to maintain order, we can allow them to stand in.
Okay, then they.
Not them blocking the exit.
Okay, so if you come on in and maintain order, you can enter, and you could stand right in the center here if you'd like, so you can hear what's going on. And that goes for everybody. Come on in, I see all of you way back there.
Yeah, they can stand.
Okay, if you could enter quickly, you can sit up front, you can stand up front. Okay, thank you. If we could have silence, and we will let Mr. Llewellyn start the discussion on this amendment to the mayor's budget. Mr. Llewellyn?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, as I was sort of saying, you know, I moved to Stratford with my family here in 2005. Consider myself somewhat of a newer resident, but, you know, I've been very much involved. And one of the things that I've tried to shy away from is kind of, you know, blaming the past and going back to the past. But I kind of feel that I'm at a point where I really need to kind of make the statement that, you know, I'm here, I'm trying to do all I can to really provide for Stratford's future, and that, you know, I don't owe for its past. So with that having said, I'm going to start reading kind of a statement I prepared for this evening. So whether it be at the May 1st or May 3rd public hearings, the May 8th public forum, which I'll use for the council meeting, and in the numerous emails and personal contacts I have received in the last 2+ weeks, there has been a constant message emanating for those before me. Whether it be students, resident teachers, parents, or school administrators who call Stratford home, the strongest, most consistent message that I have heard has been to make good on the funding request for the Board of Education. As you all know, I am the 9th District Councilman, and there is some nice terrain in my district. over the last 2 weeks, the hills have been alive with the sound of Stratford. Thank you. Of all the paperwork, information, and spreadsheets thrown in front of me over the last week, the most legitimate document I have seen is the so-called responsible government amendment and budget that is supported by Chairperson DePonte, Council Pro Tempore Chase, Councilman Harden, and myself. Our documentation is based on our collective meetings and has been thoroughly researched. It is also a true bipartisan amendment supported equally by 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. Our suggestions and recommendations have been fully vetted with town staff, and as applicable, there has been a spending analysis done with the various affected department heads. Our amendment was issued to our colleagues in advance of its first attempt at passage and has been reviewed by both the administration and the town attorney's office and is considered to be a legal, passable budget amendment worthy of being acted upon favorably. In this responsible government amendment, the 4 of us have reduced the mayor's spending, lowered the proposed adjusted mill rate, and have found a way to fund the Board of Education at their status quo maintaining request for the next fiscal year. The Board of Education continues to be appreciative of their historic game-changing increase from last year. The structural changes that they were able to implement by adding on the math coaches are already starting to show results, as evidenced by the superintendent's proposed 2017-2018 budget report and the increased proficiency levels indicated in the 2016-2017 STAR Math scores, which are dated April 26 of 2017. Despite the good news and the positive cause and effect from last year's increase, the Board of Education's spending habits have been continually called into question, and in response to this, the Board of Education has agreed to an audit. Some could audit that the audit is an unnecessary endeavor. After all, the district's annual spending is reported into an extremely complicated state form called the ED-001. In this report, there are approximately 12 schedules, with some items cross-listed and therefore carried in 2 places. Nonetheless, this form is part of a state-mandated process, and this form must be filled out in a timely fashion, or there can be impacts to the funding Stratford receives from the state. Additionally, the Board of Education submits its funding requests to the town so that the funds can be transferred to the BOE for further processing and payment. By conducting business this way, the BOE expenditures are also analyzed as part of the annual audit of town-side spending. Me and my fellow supporters of the responsible government are happy that the additional audit is being done, and we applaud the Board of Education for adding on this an additional layer of transparency with regards to their spending. One of the other big issues is with regards to the town's per-pupil expenditures and how it relates to similar towns that are in our District Research Group, or DRG. Under the purview of the Connecticut State Department of Education's Bureau of Grants Management, and as outlined in the 2012 Connecticut General Statutes, Title 10, Education and Culture, Chapter 172, Support of Public Schools, Sections 10-261 definitions, there are specific guidelines for counting the average daily membership numbers that constitute the number of students that the district is responsible for in terms of providing for their education. Additionally, there is a formulary for calculating the net current expenditures. As part of these calculations, there are 7 items that get deducted and are not part of the per-pupil expenditure numbers that are used by the state. Does all of this sound convoluted and complicated to you? I know it is, because it gave me a headache when I tried to figure out how all of this works. Are you thinking that I am? Doesn't the state issue some sort of a report for all of this data? And the answer is yes. Dated January 2017, the Connecticut State Department of Education Bureau of Grants Management issued a report for the 2015-2016 net current expenditures, or NCE, per pupil, which is NCEP, and the 2016-17 Special Education Excess Cost Grant Basic Contributions for May Payment ranked by NCEP. It has the net current expenditures, it has the average daily membership, it has the net current expenditures per pupil. This document is issued by the state of Connecticut. Some of my council counterparts feel that this document is wrong, and they do not want to use it or trust the data it contains. Despite the cachet of a Hartford address and the pretty picture of Education Commissioner Diana Wetzel, these Bureau of Grant Management reports should not be trusted, and Stratford should become the first municipality in the state of Connecticut to perform its own per-pupil calculations and then submit them to Hartford for reimbursement. This sounds like quite the cast of characters, doesn't it? Let's start with some of my fellow councilpersons. Among the people up here are two people who signed the $0 increase for the BOE petition. One person was elected to their council seat on a strict promise to not raise taxes, and another is in their second year of calling for no additional funding to the Board of Education. Then you have the non-town council persons who have laid siege to the Board of Ed. There is a woman whose husband is the chief negotiator for the classroom inclusion assistants, CIAs, or better known as aides. Then you have a former three-term council person with 6 years of budget experience, who's also a mayor candidate and a chair of the zoning commission.
Your discussion has to be of the amendment.
Okay. I'm discussing
I know.
how
If
this
it could-
all
if it could be a little more-
all fits
okay.
together. Okay. Another person involved is a former Board of Education chairperson, recently completed a 4-year term that included 4 maintenance budgets, which shortchanged the schools as they struggled to catch up as a state-mandated shift to Common Core.
Point of order.
Getting a
Point
ban-
of order. Point of order. This is very inappropriate.
Yes.
This is not about the amendment.
Yes,
It
Mr.
is
Mr.
completely about the
Llewellyn.
moment. It's about support of the education
No,
spending
but-
and why the large
Okay,
increase was
the
needed.
chair has the floor. The amendment is about money, so let's keep it about money and not persons,
All right,
please.
I'll skip over a paragraph, it's fine. The Responsible Government Amendment is a practical, realistic approach to town services that maintains many of the niceties and levels of service that we look for in our vibrant community. Even some of those councilpersons not in agreement with us on this amendment have agreed that this component of the budget is sensible and acceptable to them. Using tried-and-true methodologies, this amendment maintains status quo in the face of many uncertainties. There are never-ending cost black holes created by unfunded state mandates. There are the town's operations challenges with regards to us having older buildings and the ever-changing landscape for utilities and utilities-related services like solar, and the process of trying to pass our own town budget while also accounting for the unknowns that lie in a state budget that remains unfinished. This amendment was put forth and made available in a timely fashion. The goal was to produce an approved, executed budget on time, thereby avoiding any violation of the town charter. Those who voted no on this amendment did so without providing a complete, viable option of their own that could be voted on before the May 12th charter deadline. Not one of us up here wants to raise taxes. Personally, my primary mortgage has gone up from $2,200 per month to $2,700 per month, and my house is upside down at least $50,000 the last time I checked. What is happening to you is happening to me, so I understand. In addition to it being a catchy title for this amendment, responsible government is a real thing. There are implications to our decisions. You cannot vote yes on a new teacher contract, smile and wave for the press, and then walk away from your responsibilities when it is time for the rubber to meet the road. It is wrong. Time for the rubber to meet the road. It is wrong, it is hypocritical, and it is irresponsible. To properly reduce the residential tax burden, there are structural changes that need to happen to the municipal government apparatus. There are 3 executed somewhat recent examples. One is what New Britain Mayor Erin Stewart did in showing her labor units how they were adversely impacting their city, and rather than risk losing their jobs, they renegotiated. Another is Governor Malloy and how he consolidated some state-level departments, like merging the Department of Energy and the Department of Environmental Protection to form the single agency we now know as DEEP or DEEP. And lastly, there is our neighbor to the west in Bridgeport, Joe Ganim, who basically reorganized city government, resulting in a leaner, more efficient, economical municipal government. There are those examples and other options that can be explored. Budget season is not the time to make these major decisions. The cost factors will cloud our judgment. There needs to be planning by the council, internal vetting of available options, and discussion with the town department heads. The decisions that are best for the long run and that will provide the most long-term benefit will take time to make. As I look out into this audience tonight, I do not see partisanship. For the blue, I see Bunnell. For the red, I see Stratford High. For the green, I see support for the Board of Education. This current piece of business with this budget has very little to do with politics and so much more with economics in Stratford's future. My council counterparts want to pass the Stephanie Phillips Amendment. It is a race to zero tax increase budget. It throws out everything but the kitchen sink. Last week, while many of you were sleeping in the wee hours of Thursday morning, there was one last smartphone-administered act of budgetary debauchery that took place. Upon realizing that the Phillips Amendment caused
Point
a
of
mill rate
order.
increase,
We're not talking
a
about the
motion-
same amendment.
Mr.
Point of order.
Llewellyn has the floor.
He's talking
letting-
about another amendment.
No, he's talking.
He's not talking about his amendment.
Mr. Llewellyn,
I'm making
can you?
reference to another amendment.
You cannot do that when you're in an
Mr.
amendment. Those are the rules.
Chair has the floor.
So the
Mr.
chair needs to do
Llewellyn,
her job.
You are out of
One
order.
sentence.
Mr.
Upon
Llewellyn,
realizing-
if you can keep, Mr. Llewellyn, if
Yes.
you could keep your comments related directly to the amendment proposed. Thank
Right.
you.
One more page left. Do we want the families that currently live here in Stratford to leave? Do we want no new families to arrive? It is time to wake up and start getting answers for real. If the Stratford housing market goes into the tank, if the newer residents bail out, if the mill rate goes to 50 to make up for the revenue losses, then who makes out? It is time to start more closely analyzing those LLCs that dominate the action on our land use boards. Behind the fog and mist of those groups
Mr.
with the
Llewellyn,
flashing
again,
are
I'm
real-
sorry, this has to, you need to discuss the amendment directly,
But
please.
it's impacting how economic development and land use is an impact to the overall town and population change.
That's, yeah, it's a,
Madam Chair.
could it be a little more direct, please, directly related
I'm
to the
three- I'm
amendment?
3 sentences from done. So.
Go ahead,
and just
Mr. Llewellyn.
Bear with me. We need to find out who they are and who is helping them. It is somewhat widely known in the special needs community that although I am Mary Catherine's father, I consider them all to be my children, and that makes the parents like my brothers and sisters. After completing the Parent C program, that sentiment extends beyond the border of the special needs community. There is a lot of talk amongst this council about the people, and I often think about the people too. What do the people want? Is it a strong, independent Stratford capable of standing on her own, or are we to become a sister city to our neighborhood to the west, or perhaps their bridesmaid? Do we want to be to Bridgeport what Hamden is to New Haven? I look around this room and I see the colors. It is not about the politics, and it's not about the politics, and at this point it's not just about people. It is about this town's future. Though I am only a father to Eliza and Mary Catherine, I really do think of all of them as mine, and that makes all of you as parents my brothers and sisters. We are a family. This is our home, a place called Stratford.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Could we call the question? Madam Chair, could we call the question?
There's a motion to call the question. Is there a second to calling the question?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Zantezo. All in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye.
Nay.
All opposed to calling the question, say no.
Opposed, there's other council people that would like to speak.
Okay, what, there's one opposed? Is there anybody else?
Opposed. You got to give us a chance to ask
Wait, you
questions.
do not have the floor. There's 3 opposed, okay?
Madam Chairman,
So
to
the-
allow other members to speak, I will oppose.
Okay, there's 4 opposed.
Opposed?
There's 5 opposed. Okay, the motion to call the question fails. The mayor would like to make some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would urge the council to support the amendment before them. This amendment actually funds the Board of Education higher than what I initially proposed at 2.35. It supports it at 2.75. However, the amendment goes further and reduces my side of the budget, where it actually reduces it by about 0.2 of a mil. So my proposed tax increase was a little bit more than what this amendment's proposing. So kudos to the council members that worked on this. I know you worked on it very hard and diligently. And my calculations, if they are correct, if this amendment passes this evening, the average home price in Stratford is approximately $230,000. Your taxes, if this is adopted, would come out to about $111 a year, $2.13 per week, or 30 cents a day. That is to get all this. So I want to add one thing. I'm not running anymore. And when I came out with my budget, when I came out with my budget, it was one that we looked at very carefully to maintain town services, but more importantly, to support the Board of Education. Last year, we made a significant investment in education, as many of you know. The reason why we proposed a high increase in education was we fixed municipal government. We still have some work to do, but we really did a good job in municipal government in supporting our firefighters. They're ISO rated 2. Our health department is nationally accredited. Thank you, Angie Boissevain. Our police department is doing great. Public Works, our parks haven't looked better. So we've really improved this town over my tenure over the last 8 years. But there's one piece of that puzzle that's missing. And I see Superintendent Robinson is here this evening. Thank you so much for your dedication to our children and also the Board of Ed members that came out with a bipartisan agreement in developing a budget for the Board of Ed. Thank you for your commitment to the children and to the taxpayers in Stratford. So I'm an optimistic person. The glass isn't always half full, and I know we hear a lot of negativity in town. You know what? I don't have time for it, nor should you. Look at the positives. Look how beautiful this community is. We're very special in the sense we're in Fairfield County. We have 18 miles of shoreline. Sikorsky Aircraft is staying. They're investing in our community, which means more jobs and more revenue for our community. Our economic development in Stratford is killing it. Our grant list on the commercial side is increasing, which takes the burden off the residential taxpayer. So let's stay in the path. Let's continue this journey of success in Stratford, not turn the clock backwards and say, you know what, it's good enough. I'm still going to pay a lot in taxes, but I'm not going to get the services not only I deserve, but the children aren't going to get the funding they deserve in education. We have a great opportunity ahead of us, and we do have a bright future. This amended proposal prepares us and allows us for that optimistic future. So, council members, please support the amendment before you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Can?
Thank you, Chair. Before I give reasons why I would not support this amendment, I'd like to ask 3 specific questions to the enterprise fund expenditures. I'm not sure, maybe Mr. Chase or Mr. Ponte. Capital outlay contingency, you're reducing it. That's for some CIP items related to EMS, an ambulance, some safety equipment. Is your proposal not to purchase those safety devices for EMS this year?
You want it?
No, I'll let you. I'm the chair.
No.
You're removing the funding for those devices. Have you an alternate source of money to pay for those ambulances and the other safety equipment?
No.
Mr. Louise, have you conversed with this to say you don't need?
Madam Chairman, I think the finance director can explain this to you.
Yes, Mr. Wahlberg?
Yes. Mr. Can, what was that question again? I'm sorry.
The CIP to be paid for by the EMS fund has $205,000 worth of items. We're reducing that $205 by $98,000. So my question was, is there a substitute source to fund that $205,000 purchase that was prioritized by the mayor for 2018?
It's to my understanding that that is not going to be approved. There are certain items on there that I think is going to be postponed.
Okay, I'll go to the next question, please. Transfer applied overhead reduced by $77,000. I look on page 7, excuse me. That's a revenue source for the general fund. Page 16 of the budget, page 12. I have trouble with numbers. You're reducing the town's income by $77,000. I had to get a laugh, Alan, at my own expense. Mr. Chase and Mr. Ponte's amendment has reduced the town's income by $77,000, but there's no offset to that on revenues.
That is true.
Okay, pension deposit. How does Short Beach Golf, they've always made an annual payment of approximately $100,000 to pay for their pension liabilities. Are we suggesting that the town now pay Short Beach's pension liabilities?
The question was posed to me, how is that validated? How is it that there's a pension contribution of $109,000? I could not answer that, nor could I find any reason for it.
So for all these years, the town has been taking money from the Short Beach Commission, enterprise fund, if you will, with no substantiating evidence.
I can only substantiate $17,000.
Okay. But it is true, if that is the correct amount of money, that every enterprise fund is supposed to carry its own weight in terms of its employee salaries, its equipment, the employee benefits such as pension.
That is correct.
Okay, so the actual pension deposit is only 17, and you've made the right accounting, maybe it was booked for 125 or so? So you only remain $17,000.
It was $17,000 based on what we did when we did our cost analysis, of which you were a part of it.
Yes, and that's similar to how the WPCA account, enterprise fund, was paying about $1.2 million a year in pension, and upon review, we found out it should only have been paying around $600,000 a year in
I
pension.
can only account for the current year. I cannot account for prior years.
So just for the record, the WPCA used to pay $600,000 a year for its historical pension liability for current and former employees. In 2014, the mayor doubled that pension cost. We learned that that pension cost was not substantiated. It was essentially a taking of money from the WPCA to the tune of $600,000 a year.
I can only account for what our actuarials gave us, and subject that to the current pension bond issue.
Is there any reason to think that this year versus last year, or the prior 4 years, that we eliminated $600,000 in pension liability?
I cannot account for prior years. I can only account for the current year.
Okay. Very good. How would we account for, in this proposal, the second item, transfer applied overhead, which is not shown as an offset to revenue on the town side?
Actually, it should be. Okay, and certainly it's appropriate to, amend that to make sure that's included.
No more questions?
Can I just answer that, please? Sure. That would need to be addressed in the calculation, the official calculation of the mill rate. So this is an estimate, and if it's given that each mill is about 4.4 million, 77,000 is going to be in the hundredths.
One more question,
I
please.
imagine.
The enterprise fund for EMS, what is its current balance?
What is its current balance?
And what would its balance be at the end of 2018 under this proposal?
Let me get the audit report, and I think that would validate your question. One moment. At the end of 2016, and that's fiscal year June 30th, 2016, their fund balance was $40,773. Unrestricted is a negative $102,767. Now, unrestricted basically is kind of budgetary. That's really what we have to talk about.
Excuse me, can you define unrestricted again?
Yes. Unrestricted is basically, that's going forward. Restricted is applied to the assets versus the bond issues that they have to pay, the bond payable. So you remove that, the net result of that was $1,143,570. Basically what that is that we take the total assets of the EMS minus the debt, and that comes up to the $1,143 million. The net result is that they started the year off as of July 1st, 2016, a deficit of $102,000.
Is there a reason why the town did not make the EMS whole back in July of 2016?
I have no reason for that. I have no answer for that. Basically, I think it's the intent of this council to make it whole going forward, and certainly it's being addressed currently.
So currently, a negative balance of $102,000. The 2018 forecast showed a further negative income versus expenditures of about $400,000. So if that remains true, then at the end of 2018, there will be a minus $500,000 balance in the EMS Enterprise Fund.
They will have a negative balance, yes. The way I look at it, they will have it this year. I think it's the intent of this council to make sure that doesn't happen going forward.
But given the statements made by Mr. Ponte a few nights ago, should not this budget proposal include making EMS whole for calendar year 2018, which is the fiscal year under discussion?
I think it was the intent to make it whole current budget.
And proposed budget, would we, knowing that we go into 2018, so would we, to be consistent with what you said before, should not the amendment read by Mr. Chase include an adjustment to revenue because of the applied transfer overhead of $77,000, but also an adjustment to revenue of paying back the deficit of the EMS fund, which may approximate $500,000?
We can't go backwards. We can only go current and forwards.
Well, current, you have a negative of $102,000.
Correct.
Going forward, expenditures are going to exceed income by a projected $400,000.
Correct.
That's $500,000.
Wait a minute. That's in the past. Okay, the past has to be addressed, okay? We're addressing the current budget.
Very good. The current budget projects a 2018 negative balance for EMS Enterprise Fund of about $400,000.
No, that's not. This is the current. We're talking about 2018 or 2017?
Let's talk about 2018.
2018, we're talking about breaking even.
The budget book says a negative $246,000, but we've usually run twice that in actual deficits.
We
How
have
would
addressed
we-
that currently. That's why it's being addressed with the adjustments, the budget adjustments.
So we're going to go into 2018 with a negative balance of $102,000. We're not going to correct that.
No, that's retained earnings. That's fund balance. carried forward. That has nothing to, we are addressing budget year 2018. We're not going in the past. If we were to go in the past, we'd have to adjust the general fund.
Hypothetical, if 2018 ends and EMS's expenditures has exceeded so that it runs an additional deficit, would the general fund be responsible for reimbursing the EMS?
It would have to be addressed. That is correct. We're talking about budget year 2018.
No more questions?
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to call the question? Oh, okay. Ms. Manis?
It's not for Mr. Wahlberg, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My question is regarding the amendment and the Board of Education allocation of 2.75. As I recall reading when the Board of Education came out, the original number to fully fund the Board of Education at their requested allocation was something like 4.67 or 64. And I was wondering how the number 2.75 came to be, and if you could just shed some light on why that number, and if it's status quo, because I remember being at a Board of Ed liaison meeting and being presented with a number of things that would be adjusted. So if you could just share, how did the 2.75 become the new fully funded number when it was a different number that came out of the Board of Ed?
Who would you like to answer that? Would you like the superintendent who is in the room? Would you like me? Would you?
Someone who made the amendment.
Okay, I am happy to answer that. In a meeting with the superintendent, I was informed that to keep the current functions of the Board of Education, that a 2.65% increase was needed. In addition, we are currently out of compliance when it comes to new English language learners and the way we provide them services. So to hire teachers for that rather than tutors would cost approximately $100,000. That gets us to the 2.75%. Is that correct, Ms. Robinson? Dr. Robinson? Okay. So this is not doing anything other than allowing the current good progress to continue. Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Kadim?
Yes, I'd like to call the question.
Okay, is there a second to call the question?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Chase. All in favor of calling the question, say aye. 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 All opposed? Okay, we shall call the question. This will be done by roll call vote, and we will start.
Madam Chairman, just to be clear, you're voting on the amendment only.
We are voting on the amendment to the budget. The next vote would be to the budget, and then the third vote would be the mill rate. Okay? Mr. Farrington-Posner?
No.
Mr. Farrington-Posner votes no. Mr. Kadim?
No.
Mr. Kadim votes no. Mr. Hardin?
Yes.
Mr. Hardin votes yes. Mr. Can?
No.
Mr. Can votes no. Mr. Young?
No.
Mr. Young votes no. Ms. Antezo?
No.
Ms. Antezo votes no. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Chase votes yes. Mr. Llewellyn?
No surprise here, yes.
Mr. Llewellyn votes yes. Ms. Manis?
Based on the information regarding the enterprise funds that was presented, I cannot support this amendment, no.
Ms. Manis votes, was that a yes or a no?
No.
Ms. Manis votes no. The chair, I vote absolutely yes. The motion for the amendment fails, 6-4. Okay, is there another amendment to be offered?
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Can. Mr. Can, do you have an amendment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can you offer it, please?
This is the exact same amendment that was offered when we last voted. We went through a lengthy reading of all the objects in the accounts. Primarily, this amendment was to address the taking of funds from our enterprise, the WPCA, the railroad. The taking of those funds costs the average ratepayer about $70 a year. So by not correcting that, you're giving 90% of the households in town an extra $70 a year tax liability that's not borne by certain households, let me say it, in the north end of town. That's been going on for the last 7 years. There's been a taking, we talked about the pension a moment ago.
Mr., do you have an amendment to offer? Because right now, we aren't discussing anything. There's no motion made. Do you have a motion to make?
I have an amendment. It's exactly the same as we read the other day. Mr. Leclerc, should we again read it from
You should.
line by line?
Yes, you should.
Seconded and all that. Let's go. You got to make the motion. Anybody second?
Okay.
Can't discuss it yet, right?
No, you can't discuss it yet. I just want to ask Mr. Leclerc, in this body, any person can ask for, I believe, a motion in writing.
That is correct, Madam Chairman.
Would any person like the motion in writing in this body, on the council?
Madam Chairman, I'd like the motion in writing.
Okay, thank you. Can you put the motion in writing?
The motion
wait.
is in writing.
Mr. Leclerc, is this spreadsheet that we have a motion?
No, the spreadsheet I have been handed is not proper because it has an entire comment of random commentary, which is not appropriate to the amendment. If you want to somehow redact this, perhaps, that last column should not be there, nor should the
Mr.
column with
Leclerc?
percentages.
I'm sorry,
If you're making
the
an amendment,
attorney's speaking.
if you're making an amendment to cut the budget by these amounts, this is an ordinance, you need to articulate what line items, what departments, and dollar amounts. The commentary to the right would not be appropriate insertion into this ordinance. That's the same thing we indicated last week when this amendment came up.
As a point of
I'm
order,
sorry,
the amendment is being passed around in writing.
there's a formal amendment being passed around?
In writing.
Okay. Mr. Kim, were you aware of that?
Oh, well, I was aware that we passed it a few days ago in writing. I'm not sure, like, how many forms of writing we have to hand out, but we do have another form in writing that's properly formatted per Mr. Leclerc's observations. So, there you go.
Madam Chairman?
I believe
Point
I
of
have
order.
your last.
Mr. Chase?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I love the way these things are sprung on us in the last minute. I'm going to ask the council chair for an opportunity to recess so that we can review this.
Okay, there's a motion for recess. I'd like to, perhaps when we recess, we should be moving to Stratford High at that point, so there would be adequate seating.
This is the same amendment as we passed the other night for,
We didn't pass an amendment the other night, and if I recall, if this is the same document that you offered the other night, it wasn't balanced, which means that this could be possible, shouldn't be before us.
well, the corrections were made by our finance director and integrated into the one you have now.
Well, I
the
don't
chair,
know if he's, through you, Madam Chairman, I don't know if the finance director has an opportunity to see this, so I'd like to hear from him whether or not this is a balanced amendment.
Okay, Mr. Wahlberg? There we go. Mr. Wahlberg?
Do we need to adjourn?
What's that? Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Wahlberg, the question is from Mr. Chase. Mr. Chase, through the chair, can you ask Mr. Wahlberg the question again?
Mr. Wahlberg, have you gone through this amendment which the council just received?
Madam Chairman?
Yes,
If
Mr. Leclerc?
If I can ask a point of clarification, there was just a comment made that this is the identical amendment that was made last week.
Yes?
If that's the case, this body cannot consider the same amendment over and over and over. It was defeated by this body once. It did not pass, so it cannot be introduced again in its same form.
Thank you, Mr. Leclerc.
Excuse
Are
me,
there-
Madam Chair. Can't be the same amendment if it was correct.
Are there, are there any other amendments to be offered?
Point of order. It is not the same exact amendment. There have been changes to it. There's changes in the org numbers.
I think that someone moved, the gentleman who just moved this item be amended indicated it's the same amendment.
It's not.
Well, that's his motion. His amendment is improper. If the chair wants to recognize someone else for an amendment that is different, she may do that. But Mr. Khan's amendment, which he just made, which he indicated is identical to what was defeated last week, cannot be raised again this evening.
Okay, so Mr. Can, your
I
motion-
withdraw. I will
You
withdraw the amendment.
Okay. Is there any other amendment that anybody would like to make?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Manis?
I'd like to put forward an amendment that has been handed out to the council by me. It is in color, and it is about 5 pages long. It's in color, so that everybody knows what it is. We're not confused. The amendment reads as 5.52 Ordinance Committee. And are we moving to Stratford High, or are we going to read this before?
Wait,
I don't see why we would have to move to Stratford
I'm
High
sorry.
for this amendment
don't
when
have
we were
to
here for the other one.
just
there's
one
no
second,
reason.
please. Stand down. I'm sorry, the Chair Pro Tem does not have a copy of what is being,
It was handed to him.
The town attorneys don't have a copy of it also.
the town
Madam Chairman.
attorneys do not have a copy. Are there other copies?
Yeah, there's copies all right here.
Well, then pass them around, please.
passed around. Nobody took them.
We have to read this in?
Was it a double? What was it a double?
Hmm?
You got a little shuffle.
Okay. No. We're taking a 2-minute recess.
Okay.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, I'm going, yes, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I appreciate the effort. Unfortunately, again, this council is being offered an amendment which is not balanced. I would point out to 2 areas alone. It's items 1201, 6742.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just want to, we haven't, the amendment isn't on the floor quite yet.
Well, maybe it shouldn't be brought on the floor because this is not balanced.
Mr. Chase,
Madam Chairman,
point of order.
no, point of
Through
order
the
here.
chair.
Madam Chairman,
Through the chair.
Madam Chairman,
Through the chair.
Mr. Chase?
thank you, Madam Chairman. The charter requires us to have a budget in place by May 12th. Ladies and gentlemen, this is May 15th. If you continue this charade, this could last all summer.
Through the chair. Through the
Hey.
chair.
Who's saying that? Mr. Can?
Madam Chairman?
Mr.
Can has
Chase,
the floor.
let's remind that your amendment was not in balance either.
Wrong, sir.
No, it's not.
The enterprise funds do not affect the operating budget or the
You
school
did not
budget.
account for the lost revenue. The testimony was given by...
Point of order. Point of order. Through the chair, point of order. Nothing has even been
Yes.
put forward yet, and we're talking about if amendments are balanced or not. This amendment would need to be put forward and seconded and be in discussion before we even talk about this. So can we please have some decorum here and do the right thing? Thank you.
I'm going to take a 2-minute recess.
Motion
2-minute recess.
Minute, she didn't finish talking what
Take their seats, please. If council members could take their seats. All council members, Mr. Can, Mr. Hardin. You got it? Let's bring it all in. Okay, if council members could take their seats. Okay, is there amendment to be offered? Mr. Llewellyn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I thought Tina had the floor before we
I know Tina had the floor when we recessed.
I did not hear an
She was
amendment.
offering an amendment on the
Sorry.
floor, and then you recessed.
Actually, Mr. Chase had the floor then.
No, Ms. Manis had the floor.
Let me ask Mr. Leclerc.
I
Mr.
will
Leclerc?
I will withdraw my amendment in lieu of the circus you'd like to provide. It's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, her amendment was withdrawn. Mr. Llewellyn?
I guess I just became a circus performer.
If I could ask
So-
people to... Thank you. Mr. Llewellyn?
Madam Chairman, as the mayor's budget is already on the floor, I would like to make an amendment to the ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for the town of Stratford CT for the fiscal year 07-01-17 through 06-30-18 to decrease the appropriation by $898,935 and to increase revenues by $162,557. This change is recommended by council members Chase, DePonte, Hardin, and Llewellyn. I will now read in the affected lines. On the expenditure side, 01-101-6004 object number, town council clerk payroll part-time decrease 40,000.
Point of clarification.
I'm sorry.
The numbers that Mr. Llewellyn said are not the numbers that are on the paper in front of me.
I'm sorry, then you don't have the right paper. Can you pass this down to me?
Mr. Llewellyn said
we're just
162,557. I have 162,757.
Oh, this should be 757. He's right.
Sorry, I misread the 5 as a 7.
We need things correct for record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Absolutely, we're making mistakes left and right. May I continue?
Yes. Mr. Llewellyn, continue.
So second line, 01104, object number 6003, town attorney, payroll regular, amount of 72,936 decrease. 01105, 6061, object number, chief administrator, education, $2,000 decrease. 01111, object number 6081, planning and zoning, education, 31,500 decrease. 01111, object number 6399, planning and zoning outside services, 44,000 decrease. Organization number 01251, object number 6053, employee benefits, self-health, $136,000 decrease. Org number 01151, object number 6602, contingency, line item of the anticipated expenses, 25,000 increase. Org number 01305, object number 6003, tax collector, line item payroll regular, 33,000 decrease. 01351, object number 6019, recreation payroll other, 20,000 decrease. 01360, object number 6422, Visiting Nurse Association, Community Grant, 53,500 decrease. 01406, object number 6363, Department Town Garage, line item heating oil, $7,000 decrease. Org number 01461, object number 6523, Fire Administration, Emergency Management, $9,000 decrease. 01551, object number 6802, Board of Education, Teachers Retirement, $902,181 decrease. Line number 015516802, Board of Education, this is the differential amount to get the BOE budget to 2.75%, $427,182 increase. The total deducts on the expenditure side are $898,935. On the revenue side, 01100, object number 5043, EMS, that's a $77,243 decrease. Org number 01100, 4642, general fund cell tower rental, 40,000 increase. 01100, object number 5029, general fund railroad fund, 130,000 increase. 01100, object number 4644, general fund building lease, 25,000 increase. 011107, object number 4306, general fund conveyance tax, $20,000 increase. 01461, object number 4349, general fund fire department, 25,000 increase, and that brings the revenue number to 162,757.
Okay? I'm sorry? Now, Mr. Llewellyn, do you want to
In
continue?
addition, council members Chase, DePonte, Hardin, and Llewellyn would like to amend the budgets of the EMS and Short Beach Golf Enterprise funds with the following changes, which have no impact on the mill rate. Organization number 43943, object number 6641, EMS, capital outlay contingency, 98,642 decrease. Line number 43943, 7001, EMS, transfer applied overhead, 77,243 decrease. Org number 40940, object 6063, Short Beach Golf pension deposit, 109,259 decrease, and the total deductions on that are 285,144.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilman Hardin. Discussion. Mr. Hardin?
You know, one of the things we have to remember with our comments here is that there are young children in the audience here.
Could speak up, please.
And so when we respond with each other, let's use a level of respect. There are young children here. Very quickly, I know we've been bickering back and forth about the Board of Ed. And, you know, I graduated from Stratford High School in 1995. And I told this story about a month ago about me being learning disabled. I was in special need classes in the city of Bridgeport, which included watching a video and playing with puzzles every day. And when I moved to the Stratford school system, I was able to move to a school system that had structure. It allowed me to work for the town within this city, from EMS, Stratford Police Department, and other surrounding towns. One of the things that I do not support is cutting what the Board of Ed needs to do the appropriate job. And as though, you know, the saying used to be people, politics, and money, one of the things we have to think about is our future. And I think a lot of people here overlook that. I don't have any personal grimes with anyone here on the council, but again, I'd rather do what's right so I can sleep at night knowing that the kids have a bright future. And the classes, as I look around and I see some of the teachers who have taught me and some of the cards that I receive from some of the students and the teachers and the principals who are very excited that I'm actually playing this role. So it's really important that we support the children. And again, I'm asking, to be mindful that we do have a listening audience and we have children in the audience, and to show each other a level of respect. I also like to thank the police department, EMS, and fire for all the work that they do in this town to keep the town safe. I'm an ex-member of Stratford EMS from 1994 to 2013, which I started in the Explorers Post, which was for young kids. And so I am a product of this community, and one that I could be proud of sitting here. For those who don't know, my grandmother taught at Stratford High School for 32 years, Ruby Kindle McNeil. She was an English teacher. She retired in '93, and she lost her battle with cancer in '94. So I have an obligation to the Board of Ed to do what's right and what's fair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, Ms. Manis?
I have one question regarding the railroad fund with the $130,000 revenue line that's being used, and then the reconciliation of the WPCA and the other enterprise funds. Has that been added to this amendment or changed in any way?
Okay.
No, it hasn't.
Is the question, do you need Mr. Wahlberg up here?
Well, whoever presented the amendment, what I'd like to know is, it looks to me here that the railroad funds are continuing to be quote-unquote rated in order to fund this, and that I don't see a separation of EMS, WPCA, or Short Beach, or any of the other funds. Is that happening?
Okay, let me ask Mr. Wahlberg about the special revenue fund called the Railroad Fund.
Correct. Question?
So the railroad fund on 011005029 is a railroad fund, and it says $130,000. So as I understand it, that's an enterprise fund similar to WPCA, Short Beach, Dog Fund, Harbor Fund, and all of those have reserves.
No, they're
which,
not. Correction.
Okay. So can you tell me about
It's
this?
a special revenue fund,
Okay.
all right? And it's under different criteria. It's not an enterprise fund. It's a special revenue fund. Okay? And the question being,
So my question is, going into those reserves, as was done last year with the tax increase, and now we're going into them again as a reserve, how much money is left in those reserves? Are we going to continue to go back there over and over again?
no, the railroad fund is doing very well. Currently, it has $1 million cash fund balance. It's doing very well, and it continues to be positive. Okay? You're welcome.
So,
And, Madam Chairman?
so the railroad fund has $1 million in it, and essentially in this amendment, we are reducing that fund by $130,000 in order to fund this amendment.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
we're increasing their contribution to the general fund by $130,000.
Is that in addition to the people that are salaried employees that are already paid for
No,
the railroad fund?
that's a transfer out from that fund and a transfer into the general fund to help the mill rate.
Okay, so that's in addition to all the other things that are already being charged to the railroad fund for employees?
That is correct.
Okay, and then just one last question, if I may. I don't see the WPCA pieces on here. Are those being, is that $900,000, $600,000, $300,000?
That has not been adjusted. It's staying as is.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's staying as presented in the mayor's budget. It's not being adjusted in the $70 charge that Mr. Cannon talked about another time when we were talking, but those charges that are unduly placed on people who have sewers as opposed to people who have septic tanks is just not addressed at all either.
No, it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Okay. Ms. Antezo,
I'd like to offer an amendment to this amendment.
I believe first you have to vote on the amendment.
Pardon?
You need to vote on,
No, we don't.
I'm sorry?
Now, you can take an
I'm
amendment.
We can take an
amending the
amendment to an amendment? I'm sorry.
It has to do with the WPCA funds. In the town budget, it's calling for $944,000 for the services rendered by the town. We have determined that it's probably closer to $666,705. So the amendment I'm offering is to remove the difference under your revenues because it will decrease the revenues, and that's organization 01100, line item 5038, decrease the revenues by $278,085.
Okay, is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Can. I'm sorry, Ms. Antezo, could you please just read off the the org number and the object number again for
Yes.
clarification?
Org number 0110 5038. It's on page 12 of our budget.
I'm sorry, that's 011,
00.
oh, 00,
No, 01100.
00, okay. And then 5038 for
5038.
$278,085.
$278,085. 085. 2780, comma, 085.
Point of clarification.
I'm
that-
sorry, there's, just, wait, 1 second. And then, yes,
Point of clarification is if I do the math with that negative number, it creates a negative revenue of $115,328. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I'm just doing the
So
math
it
myself, so-
leaves the revenues that they've listed here as a minus 15,301.
328, thank you.
right. It would
Is that allowed?
It increases taxes, right. Okay, and it was seconded by Mr. Can.
Yes.
There was a motion and a second. Discussion on that?
It increases the mill rate.
Yes, it increases the mill rate.
Is there discussion?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Can?
Yeah, to Mr. Chase's point, it would increase the mill rate, but it would also decrease, probably not decrease the WPCA rates because the WPCA fund has been so depleted over the last few years. This will minimize some of the depletion of that fund and allow the WPCA to embark upon the capital of improvements that it so needs after so many years of deferred maintenance.
Madam Chairman,
Wait, Mr. Can still had the floor.
sorry.
This is just one of the many budget adjustments that are offered in the amendment that has been alternately put forward. As it was stated earlier, the WPCA rate holders are individually, those 21,000 households, funding the town's general fund to the tune of about $73,000 a year. That's a tax that's regressive. It's a tax that is the same no matter what the value of your home is. It's a tax that hurts the lower income people more than the higher income people, those with more expensive houses versus less expensive houses. And it's not something you can write off when you do your federals because it's considered a fee, not a tax. So it's essentially a triple whammy for the low-income families because it's a regressive tax. And this item that Ms. Antezo put forward, along with a few other items, do need to be addressed. It's time that we stopped raiding our savings accounts, we stopped depleting our reserve accounts, and created an honest town budget that could stand on its own without deficit spending. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Chase?
yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. That was a bunch of nonsense. Yes,
Mr.
yes, it
Chase?
was. And I wish you wouldn't bring up, you're
Mr.
talking,
Chase, through the
no,
chair,
I am,
please.
through you, Madam Chairman, you're talking class warfare. The North End this, the rich people that, the poor people this. Nonsense.
Oh, could we get the...
No, I'm going to get to the point. If you recall, Mr. Can, there was a little study done that basically
Maybe. In the
said...
study through the chair was proven
Mr.
that a
Chase
reduction
has
in
the floor.
expenses.
Mr. Chase has the floor,
Chase
Mr.
has the
Can.
floor, please.
Mr. Chase?
Can I go on?
Yes, you may.
If you recall, there was a study, and the consultant was quite clear saying, actually, the town was being underpaid what it was owed for the services that were being paid, we were paying for the WPCA. Don't smirk at me.
Mr. Chase? Mr. Chase?
Madam Chairman?
Mr.
I have the
Chase has
floor.
the floor.
Decorum, Madam Chair, decorum.
Mr. Chase has the floor.
I could go on and on with this, but what I'm just going to say at this point is I would just ask the council to vote down this amendment. It's nonsense. It reduces revenues to the town, causing a mill increase, an additional mill increase.
Madam
Okay,
Chairman?
now
Madam-
Ms.
Madam
Antezo.
Chairman? Okay. In reference to the quote that Mr. Chase read at the last meeting, which is, quote, from our report that the WPCA had done by Municipal and Financial, a cost allocation study may show, as the letter from the Chief Administrative Officer does, that the cost of services to the WPCA from the general funds equal or exceed current overhead charges. Well, I contacted them and asked them for the letter that the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Timniak, had given them. Well, lo and behold, it was the same letter that we saw in April. I don't know if you remember then, but some of us do remember that Mr. Timniak basically said that the town provided all the WPCA benefits to the tune of $1.5 million. And at that meeting we had last April, we told him, we pay our payroll tax, we pay our pension fund, we pay health insurance, we pay life disability insurance, and a 401A retirement from sewer fees. The town does not give us that money. But Mr. Timniak, and I'm very annoyed with Mr. Timniak, because we told him last April, and he sent erroneous, should I say, lying information to the people that did this test. When they asked him for a letter, you know we told you that we did the benefits. We showed you our budget. And he sent me what you sent him. You basically told him that the town was giving us $1.5 million for benefits.
Mr.
They
Timniak, I'll
aren't.
give you a chance in a minute. Ms. Antezo, do you have more?
Well, he's going to answer me.
Okay, Mr. Timniak.
You're going to try.
What I sent him is exactly what the council passed last year.
No, you did not.
We
sent him the letter that you showed us that had a listing of the benefits stating that the town paid for the benefits to the tune, and that's when they were charging us for the pension fund like $1 million or more. In 16, it was 1.4 million, and in 17, it was 1.5 million, and that is what you sent him. Now, when we talked to you in April of 16, we told you, oh no, you're wrong. This is wrong. We told you it was wrong. I remember. We pointed out to you that we pay all of the benefits, not the town.
The cost allocation I gave the gentleman, Michael Maker, who did the report, was the exact cost allocation we used last year when we set the budget.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was.
Show me otherwise. I don't know. I did not
You
make up numbers.
You said in your cost allocation that the town gave us $1.5 million?
I gave him the exact thing which the council adopted last year when they did the budget. It was passed out. It was been given out to everybody numerous times.
I've got the budget here. At the end is the WPCA budget. WPCA has always paid benefits from sewer fees, not the town. You told him it was the town, which made him come to a different conclusion. That's all I'm going to say.
I dispute
It wasn't
that.
the truth.
Okay.
It was not the truth.
I absolutely dispute that.
Okay, thank you for the, we have on the record that you dispute that account. Mr. Can.
Thank you, Chairman. A few days ago, Mr. Chase read that letter from the consultant that said, "A study may show." Ms. Antezo just reread it, "A study may show." In fact, a study was done. The study found out that the town was double billing the WPCA for the pensions. The study found that the town was double billing the WPCA for workman's comp. The study found that during a period of hardship, when the WPCA employees were getting no preventative maintenance and they had no direct supervision and they were being under this duress of being sold to New Haven, there were a number of employee grievances. There was a spike in grievances to our HR department. For that one period of time where there was a spike, that's not representative. So we said the employee human resource department does not spend 20% of their time on 17 out of 700 employees. So we adjusted that appropriately. So what may have gone up instead was found to be an abuse of fiduciary responsibility, a gross taking of money. And the fact that, we've talked about this as a council for the last 6 months. There's no denying every one of us 10 have seen a number of emails from me with a number of attachments, a number of hallway conversations that have attested to that, have validated that, and why certain households in town are being asked to pay an annual penalty that keeps compounding year over year, and other households are given a pass where they don't have to pay. That's the regressive tax. That's not fair. That's not proper cost accounting. Mr. Llewellyn, if you had 2 customers you were developing for, and you started assigning all the overhead for your time to only one of those 2 projects, would you think one of those customers would be upset? That's what we're doing here. We're taking money from WPCA and we're using it to pay non-WPCA business. The town charter says you can't do that. We're just trying to correct what the town charter says is legal. On top of it, the sewer revolving fund. State statute regulates that it can only be used to pay WPCA bonds, it can only be used...
Actually, we're not talking about this amendment to the
Well,
amendment.
it's-
It's not about the revolving fund. This is just about
Very good.
overhead.
I'll introduce that as another amendment if we care to.
Okay, that's a different story.
Thank
Actually, there was Mr. Eng wanted to speak for a second. So at my request.
Yes,
Mr.
I'd
Eng.
like to address the HR comment by Mr. Can. Since nobody came to me and asked me what the costs were related, other than the CAO, we did justify it wasn't just because of a couple of grievances. The WPCA issue wasn't just a couple because of the selling of the plant. There were other grievances such as job performances. There's also grievances because of people being disciplined. There's also factored in HR is the hiring of people at the plant, advertising, doing screenings and so forth as well. That's related to those things. And there's also the negotiations that you have to divvy out as portion of that, since those folks are represented by the local 134. So when you ask for a percentage, which the CAO did, that's what we gave them of the total cost. So when you're trying to minimize it by saying it was just because of a couple of grievances, that's not correct or accurate. So all I'm saying is, just want to be on the record that the information that you're providing is not the full information that's available. And my only issue was that no one spoke to me, and when someone makes a public statement that says that we're overcharging someone without knowing all the facts, it's a problem.
Through the chair, Mr. Ring, I got the information from the CAO. We spoke about the points that you raised. Of course, I understand you do more than just handle grievances. It's all the firing, the background checks, et cetera. But the WPCA represents less than 3% of the employees in town. The volume of work it takes to hire, maintain, review, reward one of those employees is not 4 times greater than that of a other public works employee or of a fire or a police or even an individual that does clerical work in town hall. So we simply, the adjustment we made to your office in terms of the cost accounting was a $30,000 adjustment.
But that was based on your assumptions and not...
No, it was done in conjunction with the CAO. I don't do these things in a vacuum. People say, they make these pronouncements, I don't do talking. We all talk with each other. I talked to you the other day.
Yes,
And,
you did.
and we spent 6 months working on this cost allocation, this correction of the overhead.
But the other day was the only time you and I spoke about it.
No, but what you said to the CAO and to the finance director is what they said to me.
Correct.
And then we adjusted it based on what we perceived was a true,
Right, your perception.
we did it as a group.
That's
Now,
not
in the
what I'm
in the middle of this $1.1 million taking of money that I'm attesting to, the $30,000 that we adjusted your department's overhead for, it's still significant, but it was essentially saying, in the course of business, a public works employee that is in the garage, it's in the highway, that does sanitation, is not necessarily 3 times less expensive to take care of than someone that works at the WPCA.
Well, again, there's other factors that go into that situation. If there's more turnover or there's more issues in a location, then you have to properly adjust for that. It doesn't make a difference whether you're talking about one employee in the police or fire department. You have to look at what time and how much effort is being spent in that one area, as opposed to saying, well, let's take the whole of 100 people and say we have to divvy it out equally, when that's not the case of the work that get loaded that's on there. And that's
And
what the
one
point-
item that we agreed to, I interrupted, I
You
apologize.
interrupted. I just want to make sure this does not turn into a
Right,
budget
I'm just
workshop.
making-
If that's the case, then we'll need to recess.
I
a
take
different
Mr.
time.
Ring's point, and in the scope of things, it's not a perfect analysis when you're trying to do interdepartmental overhead allocations. I'm sure we can all say that in a corporation, there's plenty of arguments over who has to pay for what. All that we're trying to do is get to a natural, right size, deductively derived, rationally proven, not perfect. And I want to thank your department for providing quality HR services to all the employees of town. And statement was made by me in the concept of an audit may show that the town needs more money from the WPCA. And the adverse was proven unequivocally. And your department was a small part of that.
Understand, but I was just making
Okay.
a fact of the state, that's all.
Mr. Farrington-Posner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't really had a chance to speak tonight, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to, everyone else got to kind of speak to
Yeah, but
everybody
we're talking
here.
about the amendment to the amendment, so.
When do I get a chance to speak where I could talk to everyone as Mr. Hardin did, Mr. Llewellyn did?
When we were talking about the main amendment, which is the amendment to the overall budget.
So after we get through
Do this
Ms. Antezo's amendment,
Ms.
then
Antezo.
you'll give me the chance to speak
to
to the amendment?
the amendment.
Thank you.
Call the
Okay,
question.
Mr. Kadim, call the question. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm going
Point
to...
of clarification, we're voting on just
Well,
Ms.
you're just-
Antezo's
Yes,
amendment
I will
right
be
now.
clear. We are voting on the revenue source, decreasing the revenue to the town of, it's org number 01100, object number 5038. The amount of the decreased revenues to the town is $278,085. Correct, Ms. Antozo?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to do this by a roll call vote. Mr. Farrington-Posner?
Yes.
Mr. Kadim?
Yes.
Mr. Hardin? No. Mr. Can?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Antezo?
Yes.
Mr. Chase?
No.
Mr. Llewellyn?
No.
Ms. Manis?
Yes.
And the chair? Chair votes yes. Okay, that motion, that amendment to the amendment passes 7-3. Okay, now to the main amendment. Mr. Farrington-Posner?
I could speak now?
Yeah, there's
Thank you.
discussion. If that's what you wanted to speak about.
I do.
I got that feeling.
Okay. First, I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. It is good to see so many people here that are so impassioned about education, about the direction we're moving in this town. I do really appreciate seeing you all. And I appreciate all the phone calls, the messages, Facebook messages, voicemails, emails. Over this past weekend, I believe I received more than any other counselor sitting up here. I received over 150. My weekend was pretty busy. And I got to hear what you all had to say about a 2.75 increase. And I also got calls about no tax increase for the entire town to keep the mill rate flat. So there were both. And being a parent, this tugs at my heartstrings. It really does. Because my kids are in Chapel Street School. They're in elementary school, and I have a daughter that's going to be there in 3 years. And my husband and I are both big volunteers with the school. And I know Ms. Armistead is here in the back, the principal, and she can agree with me that we do a lot for the school. We care immensely about our children's education and doing what we can to help out our teachers, from donating supplies a few times a year to volunteering in and out of the classroom. Even a year ago, I wrote and directed the school play called Chapel's Heroes, and worked with the kids for a few months, multiple hours a day, so they could have a performance, because the school couldn't fund to hire somebody to do the play for them. So I, as a parent, stepped up and volunteered. If I tell you I haven't shed a tear this weekend, I'm lying. Because I'm extremely upset about everything that's been going on with this budget, and how to get to a point where we could fund the Board of Education but not give a tax increase to the residents of Stratford. It is hard as hell to get to that point, and I'm still quite not sure how to do it. But what I do realize is that there is ways to fund the Board of Education more than what we're proposing in this amendment. I don't know if we could do a full 2.75% at this point, especially after last year there was a 6.7% increase, which was historic in the town of Stratford. I gotta say, in 7 years, past 7 years, there's never been an increase like that. The Board of Ed has always been, in my opinion, an estimation, underfunded. But now we can give even more funding, but that's going to mean some serious, serious cuts on the municipal side. And there's a lot of fat on the municipal side of the town budget. We all know that. I am willing to sit here all night, 3 kids at home, my husband at home. No one's seen me, but you know what? I was elected to represent. I was elected to provide accountability, responsibility for this town. And that's exactly what I want to do, and that's what I plan to do. So I am willing to sit here all night and rip apart the municipal side of the budget, tear out all that fat, line by line. Roll back. I am ready to roll back all those Harkins favor raises that were given out in 2014. They are not necessary. All the extra redundant positions that have been put in since Mayor Harkins has come into office, they need to go. It is time to cut the fat out of this budget. Everybody, most people I should say, counselors, former counselors before me, have turned a blind eye to the overspending. That's not what I was elected to do, and that's not what I will do right now sitting here. I will not turn a blind eye anymore. There are cuts that need to be made from the mayor's office on down. The registrars of voters, 4 full-time registrars, when no other municipality around here has 4 full-time registrars making over $200,000 total in salary. This needs to end in this town now. We need to fund the children. We need to fund the education. In order to do it, get rid of all the redundant positions, the favor raises. It is time. And I implore every single council person up here to start doing the right thing. The other night we had a vote about the registrars. Ms. Mattis and I wanted to cut the registrars only by $30,000 out of an over $200,000 payroll. It failed 8-2. We were the only ones that voted for it because nobody here wants to upset the status quo in town hall. No one wants to upset the friends and family plan. I am tired of it. These are my children too, all of your children. We're taxpayers. We're at an almost 40 mill rate. It is time to change Stratford for the better, move forward, and give people a break. So I will sit here all night, and I hope you all join me. Let's have a sit-in together. Hey, if I have to, I'll take the credit card out and start ordering pizzas. But you know something? It is time to hold this entire council accountable. They need to start cutting the municipal side of the budget. We want to fund the Board of Ed? Let's cut the fat, and let's do it right now.
Mr. Hardin?
You know, I understand your frustration, and I'm totally on board with trimming the fat. And
No one did the registrars. Why?
I allowed you to talk, so please allow me to finish talking. Thank you. Let's show some respect.
Let's respect the people and do
I'm
the right
sorry,
thing.
Mr. Hardin has the floor. Mr. Hardin.
Are you done with your
I'm done.
temper tantrum? Ranting?
Mr. Hardin has the floor, please.
Now you see.
I understand that there is some point of where we need to trim the fat. Where? That's for us to sit down, and you're right, mill it over and discuss it. To target individual offices, that's not what I'm here to do. Yes, there are some people who make twice as much money as they should. I haven't had the opportunity to look at it per se, but I understand that. The registrar's office is an office that all of us use who ran for office to get vital statistics, who votes, who doesn't vote. They've been very helpful in our races, mayor race, councilperson's race, zoning race. They've been in the schools. They've showed the kids how to vote. Those are some of the important things that we need. Some of the kids don't even know how to vote. If you ask them, they complain, but they don't vote. In order to vote, that makes a change. It makes a change in society. It makes a change in how things run. We're not going to solve yesteryear's problems in the 2 years that we've been council people or persons. The mess has already been prior to us. So we're trying to clean it up as best as we know how to in the time that we have for it prescribed, without dismounting this town and preventing it from functioning appropriately. This is a town that we all love. This is also a town that some of us are bitter about. I'm bitter about some of the things that go on in this town. But right now, it's about getting this budget together, giving the kids what they need educational-wise so they can do what's right and become a pillar of society. They can learn the things that need to be learned, and we need to help them out. Believe me, I am not happy with some of the financial decisions that the Board of Ed makes. I am not happy with some of the questions that go unanswered. But it's not about me. It's about a community. And we sit here and we hoo and boo. We are a community. We are family here. These children that I see here sitting in the aisle, they could be at home watching Netflix, Snapchat, all these other things. Studying, but they're here.
You're right. You're right.
I mean,
I teach high school and studying.
let me tell you, this is so important to see the children here and want to be a part of I'm talking about history here. If we talk about this is the most money that we've ever gave the Board of Ed, this is history here. This is the most people I've ever seen in this quarter, besides the Memorial Day Parade and some of the other civil functions that we have. So if we can just part our ways a little bit and really do what we say in church, which is just, right, and fair. Let's do it. The kids need us. We always throw the responsibility on the school to teach the kids. Now give them the opportunity to do it. They need the funding.
Okay. Mr. Kadim? Mr. Kadim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, we sat through a budget similar to this, and I didn't see everybody get angry when they didn't get their way. They got their way. This year, they didn't get their way. I've never seen so many people scramble in my life, come up with all kind of things out the back pocket, front pockets, side pockets that wasn't even created. And the level of maturity is just left right out the window. It's insanity. The thought process of a
Mr.
man and a
Farrington
woman
Posner?
in terms of when you try to do
I'm
better
sorry,
for
what
the
was
parent.
that? That was,
Let's do better.
okay, can you, we're having a meeting. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Kadim, for interrupting, but there were signs put up.
Let's do better.
But as adults, I recognize last year, a lot of things didn't go the way I thought it should have went for the town because there's so many things, moving parts. You know, there's so much going on the side of raising money outside of the town itself, and, you know, in terms of what they're doing with businesses that come into the town that can offset the tax payroll and change things, you know. And last year that didn't happen, but I didn't lose my mind and yell and scream at anyone. I accepted that which was put before my council members, and how it went was 5-5, and the mayor broke the tie, and that was it. I respected that. I didn't go on Facebook or in the media or in the paper and say anything against anyone because we represent our districts and we try to do the best we can with the information that's given to us. At this time in this budget, that the Board of Ed is not getting what they want. Everybody's acting like they're not getting the same money they got last year, which is like historical amount of money. And we took care of the Board of Ed last year. Why can't we take care of the town this year? I don't understand. I thought we were supposed to take care of the whole town. And like I said the other day, if you allow the Board of Ed budget to keep going higher and higher and higher, it's going to be less police, less money for police, less money for firemen, less money for EMS, less money for dump trucks, less money for picking up garbage. So if you allow that to happen, because if it keeps going that way, then you will not have a town anymore. So recognize the numbers. They don't change. So you cannot go back on the budget for the Board of Ed. So you keep giving them and keep giving them and keep giving them, and they'll have all the money, and the town will have no money. So we will have no town and no services. So at some point, you have to say, hey, Board of Ed, why don't you allow us to try to fix this side as well like they fix your side? But they can't hear that because everything is put in front of you with the sympathy of throwing children at you like no one else have children. Okay, big deal. Everybody has children. That's what you do, procreate. But the fact of the matter is, you don't use children to loosen the heartstrings of adults who work hard and pay bills. And it's really disgusting to have all these children out here, and the children don't have a clue what's going on. They're just saying what the teachers say do. They're saying what the teachers say do. They're saying what their principals tell them to say, their parents tell them to say, have no idea what it takes to pay bills and be a parent in this today's society where the budget is so out of whack in the state that it's not even affected. They haven't even voted on the budget in the state yet, so we really don't know how that's going to affect our town. So all of a sudden, instead of say, hey, let's take care of our town and know that that's okay before the budget is passed in the state. So it's really interesting that no one sees that. Everyone just, you know, got the big tears out, and everything is, oh, the children. Children are very resilient. Who educate children? When you have teachers that are not up to par, who's going to fix that? Who's going to fix that? The administrators miss things. I've experienced it with my own children. I have children too. So the administrators didn't do what they were supposed to do along the way several times. So more money is not going to fix that. Get rid of the people who are not doing their job right and do the job correctly, get the right people in there. And once again, I've said this so many years, the balance of the amount of people that's in the town, where are the Latinos and the African Americans, where's the melting pot? Where's the other teachers?
I call the question.
Fact of the matter is there's not enough teachers, and yes, they put a lot of administrators there to pacify the fact that they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So they hire all of these administrators that happen to be African American and Latino just to pacify the fact that there's not enough African American teachers in the classroom. Where are the other children that are affected by that? So I recognize that, and Latinos. So when I see that and I recognize that, because
Can we
you
call
guys
the
ain't the only one
question,
go to the
please?
school,
Call
so
the
do I.
question.
Has the floor.
And everybody conducting themselves as if
Please.
they cannot hear this because they don't want to hear it, because they have a blind eye to it. So you see what you see, and I see what I see. And Madam Chair, I would like to call a question.
I have Madam Chair, I have an amendment.
No, I'm sorry. There's
Madam
a
Chair, I
motion.
have an amendment.
No, there's a motion to call the question. He was recognized. Is there a second to the motion to call the question? Is there a second to the
Second.
motion? There's
I
a
have an
second to the
amendment.
motion. Stop. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that passes 8-2. Now we're calling the question again. Mr. Farrington Posner.
We're voting
we
on
We're voting on the whole amendment as already amended by with the WPCA.
WPCA.
No, we already voted on
So you're
that.
voting on,
You voted on the whole thing.
Madam Chairman, you're
Yes,
voting.
you did.
You're voting on Mr. Llewellyn's amendment as amended by
Okay,
Councilman
Mr. Farrington Posner?
And I wanted to add another amendment to that, and you're not allowing me to.
To
We
cut
just-
money and put it in the Board of Ed.
We call the question.
We already voted to call the question. Mr.
Please
Farrington
call the
Posner, how do you vote?
Because I'm not allowed to add another amendment like I'm trying to, I'm going to vote no.
No.
You guys just heard me speak. I'm trying to add something. They
Okay.
won't let me.
I'm sorry, I need to repeat this. Mr. Farrington Posner,
Are
you
you going
are
to let me
voting
add more amendments in?
right now. Mr. Farrington
call the-
Posner, the
Can't, once you call
procedure.
the question.
I'm sorry, if I could ask the rest of the council.
Who wants to
Mr.
withdraw?
Farrington, no, we already voted on calling the question. There's no withdrawing it.
Is there a
Okay,
withdrawal if
Mr.
you-
Farrington Posner,
I'm asking
your
our town
vote,
attorney.
I'm sorry, you do not have the floor. Your vote is yes or no to this.
No.
Okay, Mr. Farrington Posner votes no. Mr. Kadim?
No.
Mr. Kadim votes no. Mr. Hardin?
Yes.
Mr. Hardin votes yes.
No.
Mr. Can votes no.
No.
Mr. Young votes no.
No.
Ms. Antezo votes no. Yes. Mr. Chase votes yes.
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn votes yes.
If you were serious about all those amendments, you would have allowed it to happen. No.
Thank you.
Ms. Manis votes no. The chair votes, I'm sorry, the chair votes yes. The motion fails, the amendment fails 6-4.
They should have let
Okay.
me.
Madam Chairman, I just wonder, I'm having a tachycardia attack.
I'm sorry?
I'm having a rapid heartbeat attack.
I'm sorry.
I
can
wonder
EMS
if we
help?
could,
No.
if we
Motion-
could
recess,
continue
please.
until tomorrow.
Second.
EMS help